Okay, in this tutorial video, what I'm going to do is show using the chord spelling method that we've covered in our lessons with some more advanced or unfamiliar type of harmonies or sonorities. So in this case, because primarily up to this point we've been dealing with more conventional chords like major sevenths or dominant 11ths and so forth. Let's just say one of the things I advise is going through your favorite pieces from classical repertoire and just finding a sonority that, for a great example is someone like Stravinsky or Debussy or Scriabin, where you can find chords that again are not, sometimes can be hard to decipher exactly what their what their function is. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to just pick out. I've picked out here already, just with my mind, a few notes, and what I'm do is, excuse me, I'm dealing with a cold, is I'm going to go ahead and just put these up here onto Sibelius so we can see this, and then let's go ahead, let's space it. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to come back to this, is looking at both. We've talked about looking at any sonority both in a vertical and horizontal context. So in this last case, I'll add in my one other note. Okay, and there it is. And now let me go ahead and put in the voicing of the chord that I came up with. So, let's move that over and let's go down and I'll arrange it like so. And we'll see that what we have is a chord that is, on one hand familiar. There's some familiar aspect to it. But we'll come back to what this chord could be. But let's just say we want to move in like kind of a freer way than just thinking about chords from its traditional, taking the time out to analyze what the chord is. Alright, so let's go up here to, okay, so this will be my chord. So it's going to be kind of a crunchy chord. We've got C sharp, D, and E flat. How we could actually use this, the method that we've talked about in dealing with the sonority. So let's just say, for example, we're kind of going to go into like a more conventional. Let's see. Is this being seen? I hope this is being seen. What I'll do is we're going to go from like a D. It sounds kind of, anytime I hear like a flat 9, I'm just making this up now. Let's say it's a dominant, and I'm going to try and go from like a D to a G, basically like a cadence here. Use this chord for a cadence. One of the things we talked about was using the relationship, looking at the relationship from any note that's above the bass tone, and what the interval is above the bass tone. So let me do a very simple example. Was we looked at like C, and we said, that E would be the third, and G is the fifth. So I'll just put here a 5. This will be a 3. And then, for example, if I was going to F, we talked about carrying over similar tones. So then what happens was the root would become the 5th, and then from there you'd move as little as possible. So in this case, what we would do is go up to an A and go to the 3rd would become the root. So then what's happening is we're getting this rotation of a 5 to 3. The 3 is going to 1, and then the 1 is going to 5, and these will continue. So when you get to these more extended type harmonies, one thing that will change is that once you get outside of an octave. What I mean by outside of an octave is if we take C major and we start to harmonize the scale, and now that I'm here for the triad, and I add on the 4th note, that's the 7th. any note that's outside of here is going to cover more than an octave. Therefore, what we're going to get is a little bit of a change in the pattern. You could still use this, and of course, parallel voicing is still an option. But here's what I mean: is let's say, let's give this another example where it could be like like a real world kind of example. Is let's do this. Let's say I'm having like a G9 resolving to a C major 9. All right, and let's see if that's, make sure it's sitting here in the camera. Well, if I put in my bass notes here, and I'll put this in bass clef, let's go here to there, and what I'll do is I'll just spell here the ninth. So I'll have my D, my E, I'll need my A, and I'll need my F. So we talked about the two main things to consider are one, common tones, they carry over. And then two, what type of voice leading? What kind of voice leading? And so what I'll do first is look at, are there any common tones between this G9 and the C major 9? Well, yes, there would be. So the D is going to stay the same, and the B would also carry over. Okay, so let's look and see if there's any kind of a pattern from just those two aspects. Well, what happened here is that the ninth, the D is the fifth, becomes the ninth over here. And so if we were to think about that as far as how this was working from just purely a numbers point of view, is we're going to see that what just happened was the fifth just jumped over 1 into the 9. And again, you have to imagine that this is going on into like an infinity loop, so then 3, 5, 7. The reason why I put a 3 here and not a 1 is that the 1's going to be carried in my bass tone, and so I don't need to double it in the upper structure. So now, carrying over from that, we'll look at continuing on from there. So I look at the B, and this relationship to my bass note of G is the 3, is the third, and then the 7 is going to be the 7th of C, and we can see again that pattern is also staying the same. So from here, if I look at the ninth, or sorry, I keep flipping around, the A is the ninth, and I go over to that same pattern. Well, then the 9 will go to 5, and you can see that yes, that is going to be what would happen. And then lastly, the F would be a 7th, and then that will drop down to an E, and that will be a 3rd. So once you get beyond the octave, a lot of times to have smooth voice leading, what you need to do is to basically use like every other tone. So in this case, why I bring that up is let's go back to our extended harmony here, and let's see, I hope this is again coming through. And let's take a look at our example that we just did before. So in this case, I'm going to put in my D, my A, you can see F sharp, what did I say, B flat, I mean these accidentals are nuts, and then E flat. Okay, that should be an F sharp. That's why I use computer notation a lot of times. So I would do the same thing here. So looking at, okay, what is the relationship from my root to my upper note? So in this case, this will be a fifth. This is going to be, I'll put sometimes I'll put a natural sign just by a 3, meaning that, to me, that's shorthand. That is from the major scale. You can also use, sometimes what's called the forte numbers, which is to say, this is a 7, this would be a 4, and these are all semitones distance from your tonic, and so this would be the B flat would be an 8, the 11 would be a C sharp, and you would say like a 1 would be an E flat. What I'm going to do is here as say 9, and I'll just put a little flat by it. 7 is going to be a major 7, and then this is going to be a minor 6. So again, it's probably, what we really have here is is at least the sounds of my ears is like a D major and E flat minor. That this F sharp is kind of, when I hear the B flat, E flat, B flat, and then the F sharp, this feels like a G flat, like the pivot. So it's like a two polyharmony based off of minor second of each other. So like I said, it's a pretty dissonant chord. And this kind of method can help, with actually figuring out, okay, I don't see this chord every day. How can I actually, use this and expand upon it? And, one of the other things too, is like I said, we get back to is every chord has a scale. And so one of the questions becomes, what scale is this from? Is there any notes missing? Maybe there is, we could look at that. But let's continue on, which is, okay, so now what I'm going to do is the first thing I said I would use this as like a cadence. So I'm going to look towards, creating, okay, using this, treat this like a 5, me a 5 chord, and then resolving to a G, and I don't know what yet, I'll just call it a G. And then the next step I would do is just plop in a bass line, because that's going to let us know where you're going. You have to know that first. And so what I'm going to do is, in the rest of this measure, is just extend this one chord and then have a new chord over here. And so I'm just going to put in here, I'm just going to excuse me, make this up, is I'm going to use okay, B flat and F sharp. And why I chose F sharp is usually the strongest bass movements are either by a perfect fifth, perfect fifth or fourth, meaning like, a true 5-to-1, like if we had the D to G, and also minor seconds give the strongest sense of resolution. You hear this again quite a bit. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and approach it from below. I mean, we could also put in like an A flat and approach it from above, but like I said, this will be, that gets very, the A flat would be like a tritone substitution of this D. So now let's go ahead and let's look at this method. So now that since we have a flat 9, we're going to be outside of an octave. So what's probably going to work the best is going to use this every other note method. And again, how I would know that, or to think about that, is looking at what's going to be, again, like my, the smoothest type of voice leading. So in this case, let's go ahead and look at, first off, what are any common tones that would be available. So if I went to B flat, and I'm going to look through here, and I have to keep this structure, I'm going to try and make a clean box here, is I'm going to keep this chord sonority structure exactly the same. So that means, and I'll go in order from the root, so I'll have a third, I'll have a fifth, we'll have I'll call it, I'll go ahead and call this a flat 6. It could be a 13, and the 7th, and then flat 9. So I need to keep those intervals above the bass. So what am I looking at? Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do the very first thing I'm going to look for is, again, are there any common tones that could carry over from this bass note, the D, to the B flat, while retaining this interval structure above the bass tone. So in this case, if I look, I'm just looking now at the second note, the A. Well, the A, if I just go ahead and plop this in above the B flat, that's going to be the major 7th. So I needed that. So I'll go ahead and start there. And again, this is where you can kind of do some detective work to figure out what this kind of pattern is going to be. And I should also say that, remember, these are just meant to be guides for you. You can always, decide to deviate from this stuff. And as I've mentioned many times in my lessons, um, I think the great exercise is doing like maybe two measures of expanding the harmony and then using them as a basis for your improvisation. So that way, you're also working on your ear training and you're really kind of engaging, physically. Have a physical connection with the music. But um, okay, so what's that aside is what's now happened is this case the fifth, and let's see if make sure that this is gone to the seventh. Do you see that? So now I can kind of see that. All right, probably what's going to happen is we're going to keep that consistent. That may happen. Again, that may be our pattern here. So what's happened is again, it's kind of hopped to every other note. Now this F sharp. I would look at, okay, I need is with the F sharp carry over to the B flat. Well, F sharp inharmonic, these accidentals become inharmonically spelled. If I wanted it to be a flat 6, it would become, G flat. And then indeed, then I can see what's happened is the third has now also become the fifth, and those are common tones. So would start there. Having done that, I think then you're going to get the rest of the rest of it is going to start to fall into place. So for example, if I now look at the B flat in the first chord, it's going to again, like you see, it's kind of every other note kind of pattern. And so what the flat 9 would become is, in this case, kind of nasty here. It's a C flat. All right, C flat, and then and you have to again imagine that these are going to go on to like an affinity loop, these numbers. So and so now the C sharp was the 7th, so that's going to basically hop over the flat 9 and go to the 3rd, and that'll be D. Very good. And then if I look at the flat 6, which was the flat 9, I'll have that hop over, and that'll become an F. And so then indeed, that's giving me some pretty smooth voice idiom that if you notice what's happening, we're getting contrary motion. The upper structure is moving upwards, and then we're getting obviously some oblique motion because we would have common tones carried over, or carried over from chord to chord, and then we're getting again another contrary motion with the descending bass line. So let's go ahead and let's take the same logic and look to the next chord. The same idea. Are there going to be any tones that will carry over? That's what I'll start with. Well, F, I'm looking at F sharp, is going to be the major 7th, and again, these are going to be kind of nasty. I'll just use F. It would be, if you were, it would be E sharp or something like that, but I'll just stay with the F and just say that that's major 7th. Yeah, I will. I think it's easier, so I'll put it over here. This would be E sharp, if it's in a functional fashion. And then the D would be the flat 6, and that actually, at least, thankfully, is going to be the same. So you can see that was the 3rd, and that still is holding over. Okay, so then the very same idea is I'm going to look at now. Okay, the C flat was my flat 9, and then I'm just going to now skip, again, every other note, flat 9, skip over the 3 to the 5. So what's the 5th of F sharp? Well, that's going to be a C sharp. Okay. And then let's look at what we can fill in here at the below. So then I'll look at, G flat was the flat 6. And so in this case, maybe what I'll do is go to, looks like the flat 6, hop over the 7th to the flat 9. That'll be a G. I'll put a natural sign there. Okay, and our last one is we had the A, which was, in this case, the 7, and then that way it's going to be, the 3rd. I'll go ahead and put that in, major 3rd. All right, and so now, one thing too, like I should say, is that, is that you don't, this method is great for us. Well, here, expanding a single chord, you wouldn't want to make probably a piece, if you just stay with one chord, the whole piece is going to get kind of boring. So I'm going to go ahead and plop in a different chord here. Let's see what I'll use. Maybe let's go to something else. Let's go to like a ninth, and maybe I'll put in this. And what I'm thinking is, see, this just went up a minor second. I'll just put this down a minor second. Do the same thing here, so we have an F sharp, and then at the top, maybe just drop down to E, this could be D, and just keep those over. All right, something like that. And so then what we'll do is I'll now migrate to Sibelius, and we'll see how to listen to this. Okay, so now I've gone ahead and put this into Sibelius, and I've put a little bit of a rhythm. So this is the chords that we had previously. And let's listen to exactly what it sounds like just played with what we just expanded on. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's hear that. Okay, one of the things that can help bring out, the differences between, again, like some of the voice leading, as you hear, as we mentioned, this kind of a crunchy sonority to begin with, is an example two. It's the exact same thing. What I've done, and I'm starting to think not just in terms of, now this is where it can be helpful, not just thinking in terms of, say, piano, putting on the piano, but particularly with orchestration, is I've just sustained the common tone. So instead of, see in example one, what's happening is the tones that are the same, the A and the F sharp in the first, these first two chords, they've been articulated. Well, in this case, what I would like to do is have common tones sustain, but have any tones that are moving, those are the ones that are going to be rearticulated. So again, just up here where I had the D and the F on beat 4 getting rearticulated, what I'll do is just go ahead and make these half tones. So we'll hear so this is the exact same example, but now just with common tones sustained rather than rearticulate. Here's example 2. Okay, so I've gone ahead and just made a quick example based off this this harmonic outline. As I've said a number of times in my lessons, additional work is going to be required to be able to turn this, into music. So let me just clean this up a little bit as I was preparing. So the very first chord, this very first line, this is all coming from notes in the chord that we had previously. So we see the D. I used just basically this entire sonority. Now it's like a scale basically, and then what's happening is I'm now just popping in the other two sonorities that we had, and just creating little almost like arpeggio like patterns on top. Again, all based, outlining the chord that we had previously. So of course you can, as you start to turn into music, you can always, look at like doing non-chord tones basically, and adding those in as passing tones. So let's go ahead and let's just take an example to now the same sonority, but with a melodic line on top of the chords.